Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is a story about what, if neglected Naruto is aizen chunin exams naruhina. Before I start, please support for more amazing content, and do consider subscribing to my channel and share this video with your friends. This is written by Rikudou Shinigami and link in the description and support writer. Let's start the video. Chapter 1. Discovering the hogyoku. Kanahigaku no Sato, the village hidden in the leaves, is arguably the strongest of the 5 great shinobi villages. It has survived through all 3 great ninja wars, and the attack of the Kyubi no Kitsune, the 9-tailed fox and mightiest of the Bijou. It has produced many great ninjas, such as Hashirama Senju, the Shodai Hokage, who was able to mix his Suiton and Doton together to create Mokuton, or wood release. Madara Uchiha, founder of the Uchiha clan, who was the first to gain every level of the clan's beloved Sharingan. Tobirama Senju, the Nidame Hokage, who had such a control over his Suiton affinity that he was able to pull water molecules out of the air and use them for his jutsu. When Tobirama died during the Second Shinobi War, he named his student, Hiruzen Sarutobi, nicknamed the Professor, as his successor for the mantle of Hokage. Hiruzen later taught the Sannin, some of the most powerful shinobi the Leaf ever saw, and finally there's Minato Namikaze, the Yondaime Hokage, the Yellow Flash and the first man to ever have a flea on sight order in the Bingo Book during the Third Great Shinobi War because of his signature jutsu, the Hiraishin, which allowed him to kill around 10,000 IWA troops in a few minutes. These shinobi have had many exploits that would make children listen in awe if they were to hear them. But this story isn't really about any of them. Oh no, our story starts with the blonde boy wearing an orange jumpsuit. God damn it, I have snake juice all over me. These were the inner thoughts of one Naruto Uzumaki, a boy around 13 years old with the brightest blonde hair you'd think you were looking at the sun, the deepest blue eyes that they feel like they pierce your soul if you stare into them for too long, and 6 peculiar whisker marks on each cheek. He was wearing a bright orange jumpsuit with blue on the shoulders and a white collar with blue open-toed shinobi sandals, and a blue-clothed Konoha Hittite around his forehead keeping his wild spiky blonde hair out of his tanned face. This boy is the container of the most powerful Bijou in the world, the Kyubi no Kitsune, or as Naruto calls her, Benetsuki, who he met the night after he learned she was sealed inside of him by his traitorous academy teacher, Mizuki, and true to his thoughts earlier, he was covered in snake intestines. You see, Naruto's sensei, Kakashi Hatake, nominated his team for the chunin exams held in Konoha. Naruto's team consists of Sasuke Uchiha, Naruto, and last but not least, Sasuke's little loyal fangirl, Sakura Harino, who is basically useless since she never trains herself, instead opting to stalk Sasuke and berate Naruto for not holding a candle to her precious Sasuke-kun. Anyways, the chunin exams is a contest of sorts where all ninja villages send their best genin to compete and move up in rank. The first exam was a written test where you had to cheat without getting caught to test your information-gathering skills. Naruto was never good at written tests, seeing as teachers at the academy stunted his growth because of their hate for the Kyubi, yet Naruto still passed with his team, if you could call it that. Now they were in the second part of the exams, the survival portion, which takes place in the restricted training ground 44, or in other words, the Forest of Death. The objective is rather simple: gather 2 scrolls, a heaven and an earth scroll, and make it to the tower in the center of the forest in 5 days. Simple, right? Wrong. Nothing is ever simple with Naruto's team. As they were making their way through the trees in search of a scroll when suddenly a large gust of wind blew them away from each other, with Sasuke and Sakura going in one direction while Naruto flew in another. Before he could go meet up with his team, however, he heard a hissing sound right behind him, and when he looked behind him he saw a 15-foot-tall snake. He was about to run when the snake lunged at him and swallowed him whole. As he was in the snake's stomach, he summoned about 100 shadow clones to overload the snake's stomach and free himself, thus bringing us to the present. As Naruto was ranting about having snake guts all over him, a small glowing blue orb nearby was pulsing for the first time in several millennia. The orb was watching the boy and thought to itself, "This boy reminds me a lot of that boy that defeated Aizen. What was his name again? Ah yes, Ichigo Kurosaki, strange name for someone to name their child. That boy would make a good host, and this world has forgotten the old ways of the Shinigami and Hollows. This boy would help change that if the power I feel within him indicates anything." With that, the orb let out a pulse of energy that made Naruto stop his rant mid-breathe and turn to look at a glowing blue energy coming from a bush a few meters to his left. The glow was so alluring that Naruto walked to it almost in a trance-like state and moved the bushes away to see a blue orb. As Naruto reached out for it in the same trance-like state, ignoring Benetsuki's protests not to, he felt something resonating within his soul. As he finally touched the orb, Not a second later was there a flash of light in his eyes and everything went dark. Naruto's inner world. As Naruto opened his eyes expecting to see the forest of death, only instead to see a rocky landscape with a few plateaus that looked perfectly flat for some odd reason and a few bushes and shrubs scattered here and there. But what was most strange to him was the man in front of him. The head and narrow face mostly covered by what appeared to be bandages with vertical spikes on his cheeks. He had crimson red eyes that reminded him of that jonin named Kurenai had, and he also had long black hair that was spiked on top and a bang hanging in between his eyes. It also seemed to be swaying in an invisible breeze. The man's body seemed to be muscular but not overly so, sort of like a swimmer, and was wrapped in bandages like the bottom half of his face, and his left arm had a black flame-like tattoo swirling around his arm coming from his hand. His pants looked like samurai pants but upon closer inspection appeared to be made of some sort of mist-like substance. After Naruto was finished inspecting the man, he spoke. "Okay, who are you? You can't be Bennett Tsukihime, since I've already met her." The man seemed a little amused by the boy and answered, "Hello, young Naruto." The young blonde was put on edge that the mysterious man knew his name. "I do not particularly have a name, but you may call me the Hogyoku." The now identified Hogyoku answered. "Okay, but where are we?" Naruto asked. "We are in your mind, young Naruto. I have changed it to look like the place where my last host was defeated by a boy named Ichigo Kurosaki, who used an attack that changed his appearance to the form that I have now." The Hogyoku answered truthfully. "You see, young Naruto, I am actually around 15,000 years old." That made Naruto sputter for a moment, and people have forgotten about the ways of the old world. Naruto tilted his head in confusion at that. Excuse me, but what do you mean by that?" the young hero asked. "Well, you see, young Naruto, it all started like this." And so for the next 2 hours the Hogyoku explained about how Shinigamis used to guide pure souls called pluses to a place called Soul Society, where people who have a high amount of spirit energy or Ryatsu could become Shinigamis, and how they would destroy beasts called hollows, which were tainted souls that became hollows by either dying with a strong amount of negative emotions or lingered too long in the world of the living and had their chain of fate severed. He also talked about how a man named Kisuke Urahara created one half of him by accident, and then a man named Sosuke Aizen made his other half so that he could break the barrier between Shinigami and hollows to try and become a god, and betrayed the Godai 13. An organization made up of Shinigami and Han 13 different divisions that each had a captain that was in charge and a vice-captain that helped the captain run things. He told him how Aizen was close to trying to become a god by sacrificing 100,000 souls but was defeated by the boy he mentioned earlier, Ichigo Kurosaki, who used an attack, called the Final Getsuga Tensho, that completely obliterated Aizen but lost his spiritual powers by doing so. He also informed Naruto how Aizen had done experiments on Shinigami with him, turning them into wizards, or Shinigamis with hollow powers, and made an army of Arankars, which were hollows that gained Shinigami powers through the Hogyoku, but found that neither were a perfect balance between Shinigami and hollows. When the Hogyoku was finished explaining, Naruto asked a question that was plaguing his mind for a bit. "But wait, what does this have to do with me?" Instead of answering him right away, the Hogyoku looked up at the sky inside the young Uzumaki's inner world. It was silent for a few moments before Hogyoku sighed and answered, "As I said earlier, this world has forgotten the ways of the old world. If I remember correctly, the last Shinigami was the man that gave shinobis the ability to use chakra, which is a less powerful form of Ryatsu, the Rikudou Shinigami, who fought the last hollow, the Jubi no Ukami, and sealed it inside himself. When he was old and on the verge of dying, he split the Jubi's power into 9 separate beings, which became known as the Bijou. The Rikudou Senin's 2 sons never had the ability to use Ryatsu like their father, so the knowledge of Shinigami and hollows dwindled down over time to where people forgot all about it." Naruto was perplexed by this. "But you didn't tell me what it has to do with me, though." If the bandages weren't covering his face, Naruto was sure the Hogyoku was smiling. "You see, young Naruto, you remind me a lot of that boy Ichigo, and I can tell you are destined for great things." The Hogyoku let out a small chuckle. "Young Naruto, I wish for you to spread the knowledge of Shinigami and hollows again, so that this world can start a new era. To do this I will give you the powers of a Shinigami and an Arankar, and you will be able to give others Zanpakutos, Zanpakutos, and Arankar powers so that the knowledge will spread faster." Naruto was shocked by this. He would have the powers of a Shinigami and an Arankar? Something didn't seem right about this. Then it hit him. "Hey, wait, how can I have both Shinigami and Arankar powers?" The Hogyoku chuckled at this. "You see, young Naruto, the Shinigami power will come from your soul, while the Arankar powers will come from your tenant." Naruto gaped at this and was about to retort, but the Hogyoku answered his unasked question. I may not have had a physical body, but I could still find out about the world, like about you housing the Kyuubi. Naruto seemed to calm down at this and looked at the hogyoku. Okay, so how do we do this? He questioned. We will need to bring the Kyuubi soul here and we will manifest your powers. Looking at Naruto for confirmation, the hogyoku received a nod and the hogyoku put his hand out, and then there was a flash of light. When it died down, he expected to see the Kyuubi but was shocked when instead of just one soul, 3 appeared. The first one was a woman with fiery red hair that reached the small of her back and had a heart-shaped face with crimson-red slitted eyes. She wore a traditional kimono that was red with white trims that was decorated with foxes, and complemented her hourglass figure. She had full pink lips, a button nose, and rosy cheeks. The strangest thing about her, though, was the red and white-tipped fox ears of her head, and the 9 tails coming out of her tailbone. This was the Kyuubi no Kitsune, or Benetsuki to Naruto. The second person was another woman with silky crimson red hair that reached her ankles, a round face similar to Naruto's own face, and violet-green eyes. She wore a white shirt under a green blouse with the top 2 buttons undone, and above that was black apron. She also wore a tan skirt that reached her ankles, and black walking shoes. She had a confused expression on her face while looking around. This was Kushina Uzumaki, though Naruto didn't know that. The final person was a man with spiky blonde hair that went down to his neck done in a small ponytail, and had 2 bangs that reached his jaw and framed his face. He had a narrow jaw and bright blue eyes that looked just like Naruto's own. He wore baggy shinobi pants that were taped around the ankles and blue shinobi sandals. He also wore a green Konoha flak jacket like most Konoha shinobis. Above all of that was a white short-sleeved coat that went down to his calves and had red flames licking the bottom of it, and the collar upturned. On the back of the coat was vertical kanji for Yandame Hokage and yellow flash. Naruto knew this man all too well. This was the man he looked up to as a child, the man he wanted to be like, and the man that sealed the Kyuubi into him as a baby and cursed his childhood to one of loneliness since parents didn't want their children playing with a demon or monster, as they so nicely put it. This was the Yandame Hokage, Minato Namikaze. When the other redhead's eyes landed on him, her eyes grew wide and she asked in a voice just above a whisper, "And Naruto?" At his hesitant nod, she was in front of him faster than even the hogyoku could follow. Naruto thought she was going to attack him, but what happened next shocked him. She flung her arms around him and started clinging to him like a lifeline, while she started sobbing. She moved her head next to his and said something that he never thought he'd hear. "Naruto, my baby boy, look at you, you're all grown up now. I'm sorry I couldn't have been there for you, Sochi. Please forgive your Ka-san for not being able to take care of you." Naruto was shocked. She was his mother? Why wasn't she there for him? Naruto was about to push her away and demand answers, but then her words registered in his mind. "I'm sorry I couldn't take care of you." What did she mean? Then he thought about it. This was his mind. So how did she get here? And if she was here, then why? He decided to ask his question. How are you here? Why are you here?" She pulled away and decided to answer his question. "When you were born, a masked man attacked me and broke the Kyuubi out of her seal. The stress of the birth and having Kyuubi released would have killed me. So your father decided to alter the seals so that we could put part of our souls in here so that we could talk to you when you needed it. I'm so sorry I wasn't there for you, my little Naruto-chan. Please forgive me. Please forgive me." She practically begged him. Naruto gave her a small smile. "It's okay, Ka-san, I forgive you," he replied and hugged her tightly, and a few tears collected in his eyes. All his life he wondered if his parents loved him, or if they hated him like the villagers did and abandoned him. And now he had his answer. He was so wait, did she say his father? Ka-san, who's my father? That made her freeze. He didn't know. Sarutobi was supposed to tell him when he was 10. After he said that, the Yandame stepped up and answered Naruto's question. "Hey there, Naruto. I hope the villagers treated you like the hero I asked them to. How are you, my son?" Minato said with a cheery smile. Naruto just stared at him. Seeing this, Minato walked closer to them and started again. So how any further comments were stopped as Naruto appeared in front of him and punched him in the stomach, making him keel over. Do you have any idea what you did to me?" Naruto yelled with such anger that Minato and Kushina were shocked. What did their Sochi mean? They didn't get to ask since Naruto started speaking again. "All my life the villagers have hated me. I was kicked out of the orphanage when I was 4 years old because they said I could take care of myself. I was either kicked out of stores or charged triple the price for rotten food. Kids wouldn't play with me because their parents didn't want the demon corrupting their children. They sold me this hideous orange jumpsuit so that when I was on my first serious mission I would be spotted and die. How could you do that to me? How could you do that to your own son?" Naruto practically screamed at the end. To say that Minato and Kushina were shocked would be an understatement. How could he go through that and still be sane? Kushina started sobbing at how her son was treated, and Minato couldn't believe that the village he fought and died for would do that. But deep down he knew his son was telling the truth. It saddened Minato hearing how the village has fallen. Minato looked Naruto in the eye and told him, "I thought the village would see you as a hero for holding the Kyuubi at bay, and I couldn't just ask any family for their child if I was too much of a coward to do the same. I'm sorry, my son, I thought you would have lived a happy life." Naruto tried looking for any kind of lies but found none. As much as he wanted to, he couldn't stay mad at his father. The position of Hokage is full of responsibility. You must put the people ahead of yourself. Naruto didn't want to admit it, but deep down he knew if he was in the same position, you probably would have done the same. Our blonde hero sighed and took his fist away from his father's gut. As Naruto calmed down, Kushina decided to ask the question that both her and Minato were wondering. "Sochi, do you know why we're here though? I mean, I was supposed to show up when you would try to gain the Kyuubi's power, and I don't know when Minato was supposed to show up." Naruto sighed, and found he's done that a lot lately. To be honest, he doesn't know either. Thankfully the answer came from the hogyoku. "Hello, you see, I was going to give young Naruto here." Naruto gained a tick mark on his forehead. Why did he always call him that? Powers of a Shinigami and the power of an Arrancar. In order to do that I had to bring the Kyuubi soul here for the Arrancar half. When I was doing this I thought, bring the other souls here, thinking that only Kyuubi would show up. But since your souls were also in his body, you were brought here as well. Minato and Kushina were surprised by this. Their son was going to have Shinigami powers. They felt proud of their son having an opportunity like this. They just felt bad they would have to go, seeing as their souls are only here for a limited time. They both turned to their son and hugged him, which he gladly returned. When they separated, Minato spoke, "I knew I would be proud of you, my son." He finished putting a hand on Naruto's head. Kushina spoke next, giving him a sad smile. "Goodbye, Sochi. Our souls can only be here for a short period of time before it fades. Live a good life and know we'll always love you." Naruto felt tears in his eyes. He always wanted to hear those words, and now he finally did. Their attention was brought elsewhere when they heard a cough. They turned their heads to see the hogyoku and Benetsuki standing a few feet from them. "Actually, you don't have to go." The hogyoku spoke. This shocked them, but also made them happy, although they were a bit confused, so Minato decided to ask the question on all of their minds. The hogyoku just chuckled and chose to clarify, "You see, you can remain here, by becoming Zanpakutos for young Naruto to use. If you do this you would become the spirits for the Zanpakuto, where you could remain here in Naruto's inner world." When they heard this they were happy that they could stay together, and this wouldn't be the only time they saw each other. Benetsuki gave a smile when she saw Naruto happy. All his life he's wanted a family, and now he has it. She liked seeing her container genuinely happy for once instead of having a fake smile plastered on his face. She contemplated whether or not to tell them about Naruto having the Rinnegan as a dormant gene in his body, and decided to tell them later. She walked up to Naruto and hugged him, who seemed a bit surprised by this. Benetsuki never hugged him. Sure, she was nice and pat his back if he was upset, but she never hugged him. "I'm happy for you, Naruto-kun, you finally have a family," she whispered in his ear. Naruto smiled and returned her hug. Once they were finished they all turned to the hogyoku. "Let's do this," Naruto spoke with a smirk. The hogyoku nodded and they all felt a warm feeling wash over them. "Alright then, this will change your soul into that of a Zanpakuto. You'll feel a sort of pulling feeling coming from within you. Once this is done, a sword will appear in front of you, that will represent the Zanpakuto your soul has. They will also appear in the real world as well," the hogyoku explained to them. At their nod, hogyoku started the process, making each of their bodies be engulfed by a different color light. Naruto's body was engulfed by a light that was completely black with red outlining it, giving it an ominous look. Minato's body was engulfed in an icy blue light that looks as if it would freeze you if you tried to touch it. Kushina was engulfed in a neon pink light that gave off an aura of both beauty and deadliness, and Benetsuki was engulfed in a crimson red light that looked as if it was blood made into light. The process took longer than expected, and after 20 minutes, the lights exploded from their bodies in a flash that made the hogyoku close his eyes. And when he opened them he saw something that shocked him. There was a mask on the floor as well as 4 Zanpakuto. But not just any Zanpakutos. Oh no, these were 4 familiar Zanpakutos. The first one that was on the ground at Naruto's feet was a giant cleaver-like blade almost as tall as Naruto himself. It had no hilt, and had bandages wrapped around it as some sort of makeshift hilt. The blade was black while the serrated part of the blade was silver that seemed to curve a little, giving it a look similar to a crescent moon. This was the sword that defeated the Hogyoku's former host. This was the Zanpakuto that fused with its master in order to help him defeat Aizen. This was Ichigo Kurosaki's sword. The sword's very name holds power. This is Zangetsu, Cutting Moon. The first sword at Minato's feet was an elegant curved katana, that seemed to be made out of the purest of silvers you can find in ice that's so cold it never melts. Its scabbard was a dark blue, almost black, color with a green strap so that you can attach it to your back. Its tsuba depicted a golden four-pointed star, and the 10-inch handle had an icy blue cloth similar to a glacier that was wrapped around the hilt in a braid, giving it diamond patterns. This was the Zanpakuto that could freeze anything. This was the Zanpakuto that sat upon the heavens. This was the sword that belonged to the 10th Division Captain Toshiro Hitsugaya. This sword was the Dragon Emperor of Ice, Hyorinmaru, Ice Ring. The second one at Kushina's feet was an elegant daito that gave off a feeling of a noble. Its scabbard was a majestic white with gold trimming on the top and bottom of it. Its tsuba was a shining gold in the shape of a hollowed-out rectangle with 4 protrusions connecting it to the handle, making it look like a window pane. Its handle was about 8 inches long and was wrapped in a beautiful pinkish lavender cloth that was braided, giving it a diamond pattern, not unlike Hyorinmaru's. This was the Zanpakuto that could slay your enemies in one of the most beautiful yet horrific ways ever. This was the Zanpakuto that scattered into hundreds of blades for a gruesome yet alluring death. This Zanpakuto belonged to the 6th Division Captain and head of the noble Kuchiki clan, Byakuya Kuchiki. This was the light-reflecting blade, Senbonzakura, 1000 cherry blossoms. The third one that was at Benetsuke's feet looked more ornamental than anything, yet underestimating this sword could prove fatal. It had a 3-foot-long blade with a slanted tip and was two-toned with black on the dull part of the blade, while the serrated part was a beautiful silver. Its tsuba was a unique U-shape that covered the first 3 to 4 inches of the blade, and had a red ribbon at the base of the tsuba. Its handle was 7 inches long, wrapped in a black cloth that was braided like the other 2 swords. At the butt of the handle, a small gold cylindrical object went diagonally to the side and had a red tassel hanging from it. This was the second most beautiful Zanpakuto in the history of the Soul Society. This was the Zanpakuto that screamed in battle yet remained elegant. This was the Zanpakuto of former 12th Division Captain and creator of the first half of the Hogyoku, Kisuke Urahara. This was the elegant yet fatal blade, Beneheim, Crimson Princess. The fourth and final one that was on the ground at Naruto's feet was a giant cleaver-like blade almost as tall as Naruto himself. It had no hilt, and had bandages wrapped around it as some sort of makeshift hilt. The blade was black while the serrated part of the blade was silver that seemed to curve a little, giving it a look similar to a crescent moon. This was the sword that defeated the Hogyoku's former host. This was the Zanpakuto that fused with its master in order to help him defeat Aizen. This was the Zanpakuto that belonged to Ichigo Kurosaki. This was the sword that can pierce heaven, Zangetsu, Cutting Moon. When they saw the shocked look the Hogyoku had, they wondered what was wrong. The Hogyoku saw their questioning gazes and shook off his shock and started talking. I honestly didn't think I'd ever see that Zanpakuto ever again, he said while looking at the sword in front of Naruto. Naruto tilted his head to the side in a way that made Kushina want to scream kawaii and glomp her son. What do you mean by that? What's wrong with this Zanpakuto? The young blonde asked. The Hogyoku sighed and began talking. Well, you see, all of your Zanpakutos were among some of the most powerful ones the Soul Society had. But the one you have, however, is the one that Aizen fell against. That is Ichigo Kurosaki's Zanpakuto. The Hogyoku was cut off when Naruto suddenly said, Zangetsu. As soon as he said that, the Hogyoku's back straightened up and he stared at Naruto in astonishment. What? Wait, how did you know its name? It usually takes time for someone to learn the name of their Zanpakuto. Naruto just looked at Hogyoku and replied, I don't know, I mean it's like I heard a whisper in the back of my mind, and it said Zangetsu. The Hogyoku looked at Naruto with pride. He only got it a few minutes ago and he already knows Zangetsu's name. I knew I chose right when I picked him for my new host. The Hogyoku then told them all to follow him, and he took them to a place with a little more room. The Hogyoku abruptly stopped walking, prompting the others to stop as well. Benetsuke asked the question the others were thinking. What are we doing here? She asked. The Hogyoku turned around to look at them and looked straight at Naruto. We will have to train Naruto for now. Even though he knows Zangetsu's name, he doesn't know the others or how to properly use Zangetsu. So we will spend a few years in here until I deem him strong enough to survive outside and be able to spread the knowledge of Shinigami. This made Naruto panic a little. Wait, what do you mean a few years? If you didn't know I'm in the chunin exams, I only have a few days to finish this part. How am I gonna spend a few years here? The Uzumaki asked with a sense of urgency in his voice. The Hogyoku sighed. Something it's been doing a lot around the young blonde. Naruto, this is your mind. Time moves faster in here than it does outside. 1 week in here is only a minute out in the real world, so we will have plenty of time. I also need time to alter your body in the outside world. Your body is kind of scrawny and you're also, How should I put this, vertically challenged? The hogyoku replied innocently while Kushina chuckled at that along with Minato and Benetsuki, who giggled a little at Naruto's enraged expression. Hey, who the heck are you calling vertically challenged? The Namikaze yelled and charged at Hogyoku, who just held his arm out and stopped him from moving any further even though he didn't stop trying. Benetsuki was in a fit of giggles at the scene in front of her. She always knew Naruto was sensitive about his height, but it was only natural he was a little short. He never really got any nutrients as a child since shopkeepers would never sell him anything that wasn't rotten or spoiled. A few minutes later, after Naruto calmed down enough, Hogyoku turned to the others. Well, seeing as you are the spirits for his Zanpakutos, I'll leave his training to you three. Naruto shivered a little at the maniacal gleam in their eyes. Hogyoku saw this and laughed. Hee hee. Well, see you guys in a few years. And with that, Hogyoku turned and used Shuinpa to get out of there, ignoring Naruto's pleas to help him. Trust me, young Naruto, this is for the best. You have the potential to become even stronger than Ichigo was. Please don't make me regret my decision, Naruto. Time skip 10 years Mindscape, 9.5 hours real world. These past 10 years were like torture for Naruto. His parents and Benetsuki drilled him into the ground during training, and there were times where he knew if he was any other person, he would have been dead. That's not to say that it didn't show results, however. Before, his taijutsu was horrible, where he was nothing more than a street brawler, whereas now he was a master of 4 styles such as the Raging Fox style from Benetsuki that is mostly about tricking your opponent, and hitting them hard and quickly where they have trouble keeping up between blows. The Swirling Whirlpool style from his mother, which is about continuously changing movements to keep your opponent off balance and confused, and the Soaring Hawk style from his father, which is mainly based on speed and a few powerful blows here and there to make your opponent sluggish. He also found out that he has affinities for all the elements, which shocked his parents, though Benetsuki acted a bit suspicious about it. He learned many Suiton jutsu from his mother, to where he could pull water out the water molecules in the air, Futon and Raiton from his father, to where he could use wind to cut through anything except diamonds, and recreated Kakashi's lightning blade technique, and made variations of it, with his Raiton. From Kyubi he learned Katon jutsu, and could make flames that were just as hot as the Manjikyu Sharingan's Amaterasu flames. He also learned all the Doton he could from them, and could strengthen rocks he uses so that they were as hard as steel. He had such a mastery over them that he recreated sub-elements such as Mokuton, wood release, Hyoton, ice release, Yoton, lava release, Ranton, storm release, and Shoton, crystal release. He also had clones work on his chakra control and Fuin jutsu, and now he had the chakra control of an Inbu and was a master at making seals with his Fuin jutsu. He also learned the names of all his other Zanpakutos and achieved Bankai for each as well. He had changed his inner world to where there was a 4-story house for him, his parents, and Benetsuki for after training. That's another thing that happened. Him and Benetsuki had gotten extremely close. They had ended up in a few compromising positions after a few spars, and over time they started making out with each other, which Kushina teased them about every chance she got, and when asked why she did, she just giggled and replied it's a mother's job to tease their child. Him and his parents also got close. He even completely forgave Minato for sealing Benetsuki in him. Minato even taught Naruto the Rasengan, and did what Minato couldn't do, he completed it. The Rasengan is a technique based on rotation and density that does devastating internal damage to an opponent. Naruto added his elemental affinities to the Rasengan and turned it into different attacks, named Futon, Rasen Shuriken, Suiton, Rasen Tsunami, Katon, Scorching Rasengan, Raiton, Razendori, and Doton, Tsuchi Rasengan. 6 years after the training started, Benetsuki told them about Naruto having the Rinnegan, which was why he had an affinity for all of the elements. Naturally, hearing that their son had the legendary Dijitsu, technique, that belonged to the Rikudou Shinigami, Minato and Kushina were shocked but excited about it. It took Naruto a year and a half to master his gravity element, and then he thought long and hard about who he would use for his 6 paths of soul, as he put it. He would use his Ka-san and Tu-san for sure, so that they could have physical bodies, and wouldn't only live in his inner world. True to his word, 8 years after the training started, Hogyoku came back and told Naruto that he would teach him the Shinigami arts. He taught Naruto Hakudo, which was the Shinigami form of taijutsu, and Naruto mastered it like the other styles. Naruto also learned Kido, which were like jutsu, only they didn't need hand signs but instead incantations. Kido is broken up into 2 parts, Heido, which are destructive techniques, and Naruto's favorite, and Bakudo, which are binding and trapping techniques. Both are labeled with techniques from numbers 1 to 99, with 1 being the weakest and easiest, and 99 being the strongest and hardest. Naruto was proud to say he could use both Heido and Bakudo from numbers 1 to 75 without an incantation. especially since Hogyoku said it takes most Shinigami decades to accomplish that. Hogyoku also taught him Shunpa, or Flash Step, which was a lot like his father's Hiraishin, only he didn't need a special kunai and wasn't limited to where a seal marker is to travel around. Naruto has also changed a lot since the training began, changes that he hoped transferred to his physical body. He grew in his mind to where he looks about 15 or 16 now. His face has lost all baby fat, so now his face is narrow like his father's, and his hair grew to where it looks exactly like Minato's and gained a few streaks of red in it. Gone were his once bright blue eyes, they were now replaced with the Rinnegan, which were a metallic purple color with 5 centric rings around the pupil. His body also grew and he gained a lot of muscles that most women would drool over. He was very lean and defined to where even Konoha's ice queens would blush if they saw it. He was also taller now, and instead of being a scrawny 5 feet 0 inches tall, he's now 5 feet 8 inches tall. He also changed his clothes, which he was grateful for. He never liked that orange jumpsuit. He now wore baggy black shinobi pants that are taped off around his ankles, black shinobi sandals, and changed the cloth of his headband to black. He wore a long-sleeved black shirt with silver arm guards on his forearms, and a sleeveless gray vest like the AMBU wear, only with a bit more padding and seals on it so that it's more durable. He also had a few piercings on his ears and one on his bottom lip that gave him an exotic look, or so Benetsuke told him, and he also had a necklace of a crescent moon. The final piece of his outfit was a cloak like his father's, only instead on flames licking the bottom. There was what appeared to be ice and cherry blossoms that seemed to dance around the bottom of the cloak, and on the back there was a crimson crescent moon that had vertical kanji on it. The kanji translated to Shunpa Sanin, or Flash Step Sage, and Yoso no Kami, or God of the Elements, going down from top to bottom of it. As Naruto stood in front of Hogyoku, Benetsuke, and his parents, Hogyoku stepped forward. Well, young Naruto, now is the time to show the world the ways of Shinigamis. Hogyoku spoke with such pride that Naruto couldn't help but beam. But then there was something that bugged him. Can you stop calling me, young Naruto? It's kind of weird. He spoke with a twitching of his eye. The others chuckled at his frustration. Hogyoku then shook his head and spoke. Of course I won't. Young Naruto, everyone on this earth is young when compared to me. Naruto just grumbled about old orbs taking on the form of teenage boys, which made the others chuckle more, or in Benetsuke's case, giggle. Naruto then looked at them and smiled. Well, see you guys later. The others just nodded and said their part. Good luck, young Naruto, and show the world the power you have. Hogyoku said, to which Naruto nodded too. Make me proud, son, though knowing you, you'll probably do it without even knowing. Minato told him while ruffling his hair. By Sochi, have fun in the rest of the chunin exams. Oh, and remember, you're the last of your clan, so that makes you eligible for the CRA, so make sure I get a lot of grandchildren. Kushina said with a cheery smile and stars in her eyes, making Naruto turn red like a tomato. See you later, Naruto Koi. Benetsuke said after she kissed him, making him smile at her. Naruto then turned around and walked away, but then looked over his shoulder and spoke to them. I'll make all of you guys proud. And with that, he disappeared from his inner world. It's time for the world to know just what Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze was made of. Chapter 2. The new and improved Naruto. As Naruto came to, he stood up and saw that he was right. The clothes he wore in his inner world, were transferred and he's still wearing them. Must be Hogyoku's doing. He did say he needed to alter my body. I should thank him later for letting me keep these badass clothes, our young hero thought. He was about to start moving when he heard the voice of Hogyoku in his head. There's no need to thank me, young Naruto. Naruto was wide-eyed. Hogyoku, how are you talking to me? A bewildered Naruto asked. I opened a mental link so that you can talk to us anytime you want, Hogyoku told him. Naruto nodded at that. If Hogyoku could take clothes from his and bring them to the real world, then doing something like that should be trivial. Naruto then stretched out his senses so that he could locate his team. As he felt Sakura's familiar chakra signature from the east, he grew concerned as he also felt 9 other signatures that he didn't recognize as his team. Sorry, Hogyoku, gotta go. My team is in trouble, Naruto told Hogyoku quickly and cut off the mental link and started using Shunpa to get to where his team is. Sakura Haruno was not having a good day. First a blast of wind blew her team away from each other. Then her and Sasuke got attacked by some kusanin that clearly outmatched them, and later find out that the ninja was actually Orochimaru, one of the legendary Sannin. Then Orochimaru bit Sasuke on the neck and gave him some weird-looking hickey, and to make matters worse, a team of Otonins that are way out of her league found her and demanded to fight Sasuke, who was unconscious, and attacked her when she refused. The only reason she survived was because that kid with huge eyebrows namely came in and saved her. But then even he got defeated, as well as Team 10 who's Ino, Chuji, and Shikamaru who tried to save her as well. She just felt so useless. It's times like these she really wished Naruto was here. Whenever they were in a hopeless situation he would come up with some kind of plan that would save them. And now looking up she saw the boy Zaku from the Oto team standing over her with a kunai in hand and a malicious smirk on his face. Heh, this is what you get for being a little bitch, and not listening to your betters. And with that he brought the kunai down. The others looked on helplessly as the kunai got closer and closer to Sakura. Said Pinkette closed her eyes waiting for the pain to come and never came. Sakura was confused by this, and opened her eyes only to be greeted by something that shocked her, and the others greatly. Standing in front of Sakura and holding Zaku's wrist in a firm grip preventing it from moving any further was a man around 15 or 16 years old with tan skin, a narrow face, long spiky blonde hair, and silverish-purple eyes with 5 centric rings surrounding the pupil. Another thing was that he had a body that looked to be carved out of stone, making the girls in the clearing blush a little. Meanwhile the girl from the Oto team was he stopped Zaku's hand like it was nothing. Maybe he can help me. He also had black shinobi clothes, a sliver ANBU-style vest, a Konoha Hittite, and a short-sleeved white cloak with ice and sakura petals dancing around the bottom and a crimson crescent moon on the back that had vertical kanji for Shunpa Sanin and Yoso no Kami going down it along with 3 swords and what appeared to be a storage seal on the right shoulder of his cloak. All in all, this guy looked like a younger Yandame Hokage. If they had looked closer they would have seen 6 faint whisker marks on his cheeks. The mini Yandame looked over his shoulder at Sakura and said in a caring voice much like that a brother uses on his sister, "Are you okay, Sakura? They didn't hurt you too bad, did they?" Sakura was surprised that this man knew her name and answered in a small quiet voice, "Why yes, I'm fine Yandame-sama." Her reply was cut short when she heard him chuckle and say something that shocked her and the others in the clearing to the very core. "Geez, I know I look like my dad and all, but I thought you of all people would recognize me. I mean, it's only been like 10 hours since we last saw each other? Then again, those 10 hours for you were 10 years for me." He chuckled but then grew a serious expression and turned to Zaku who was still trying to get out from his grip. He spoke in a voice so calm that it sent chills up the spines of everyone who heard it. "Why did you attack my team?" Okay, now that shocked everyone. This was Naruto. Loud, obnoxious, orange-wearing Naruto? They were so shocked but knew they were going to have to demand answers later. Before Zaku had a chance to retort, the girl on his team, Kin, answered, "We were ordered to." She practically yelled with a small trace of fear in her voice. Her teammates were shocked. "Kin!" They both exclaimed at the same time, but she didn't listen. "No, fuck both of you. The only reason I did this was because you threatened to report me to that snake bastard and rape me. I'd rather take my chances with this guy than worry about you two stealing my virginity if I fall asleep." She yelled angrily at the two. What she said shocked the Konohanins in the clearing but enraged Naruto. They threatened her with rape. If there was one thing he hated, it was when someone threatened a woman with rape. He decided then and there, those two will not be leaving the clearing alive. He turned his attention to Zaku and threw him across the clearing to Dosu, his other teammate. He looked at them with such intensity that it made his Rinnegan seem to glow. "I was just going to kick your ass for hurting my friends. But if what your beautiful teammate said," girl blushed at that, "said is true, then I promise that neither of you will live to see another day." That shocked the others that knew Naruto. He was willing to take a life. Zaku and Dosu seemed scared, but then Zaku got his arrogance back and smirked as he held both his arms out to Naruto, who noted that there were 2 holes in the palms of his hands. "Heh, whatever, you just got lucky earlier." Naruto sensed chakra gathering in Zaku's hands. "But that luck will never happen again." "Ha ha!" he yelled with a mad gleam in his eye. "Decapitating sound wave." As soon as he said that, a large blast of sound shot out of the holes in his hands and sped to where Naruto was, picking up a lot of dust so that it obscured everyone's view of the blonde. Everyone was worried about the blonde. No one more worried, however, than Kin. If the blonde was now dead, who would save her from Zaku and Dosu now? Zaku gained a smirk full of arrogance and started speaking. "I knew he wasn't so tough, now he's dead." He then turned his attention to a shaking Kin and leered at her. "You're so gonna regret ratting us out, you little bitch, right, Dosu?" The bandaged Nin just smirked behind his bandages and replied, "Of course, Zaku, she talked out of turn so she needs to be punished." Insert Bleach OST Chakaku. Right before either of them could take a step towards the terrified Kin, an intense and suffocating pressure crashed down on the clearing and was felt all throughout the forest, making other shinobi stop in their tracks. Among these shinobis was a Kumo team. One was a kunoichi with creamy white skin, cold blue eyes, short blonde hair and a large bust. She was next to a kunoichi with dark skin, fiery red hair and golden eyes, and the final member was a dark-skinned male with a laid-back attitude and white hair. All had the same thoughts in their heads: this power is way more powerful than Bai Sensei's is. At the tower, two kunoichi stopped dead in their tracks as they were walking through the halls. One had rustic red hair, jade-green eyes, an extremely large bust, and fair skin who, for once, lost her ever-present playful expression and adopted one of shock. My god, not even Yagura had power like this. Another kunoichi had dirty blonde hair, cat-like eyes, creamy skin, felt sweat coming down from her forehead, and had a blush on her face because of a certain two-tailed cat screaming at her to mate with whoever's outputting that power. Another person who felt the power was a man with dark skin, light hair, and was wearing sunglasses. As he felt the power, he stopped his rap in mid-rhyme as an eight-tailed beast sealed inside of him told him to beware whoever has this power. Beside him was a very muscular man with bronze skin and a belt that looked like a wrestling championship belt who was also shocked at the power. With the Sand siblings, Gaara was on his knees holding his head in pain as his inner demon was screaming at him not to cross the one releasing this power. Temari and Kankuro looked on in concern as their little brother continued to shake in pain, but the one thing everyone who felt this power had in common was the thought running through their minds. Please Kami, don't make me have to fight whatever is releasing this power. Back in the clearing, as everyone was looking around the clearing trying to find who was unleashing the power when an all too familiar voice came from the dust cloud that made Zaku's heart stop. Was that supposed to do something? Zaku and Dosa slowly started to turn their heads to the spot where they thought a dead blonde was supposed to see. They instead saw something that shocked them even more. There, standing without a scratch on him, was Naruto. The only difference was the blade that he didn't have earlier. In his hand was a large black cleaver-like blade, a silver serrated edge which gave it a look similar to a crescent moon. It had no hilt, and was wrapped in bandages for a sort of makeshift grip and was stabbed into the ground. Zaku slowly said in a shaky voice, how are you still alive? The blonde just looked at him with an impassive face, and shifted his eyes to the sword in his hand. Zangetsu protected me from your attack. It was rather easy considering your attack was very pathetic. As Naruto finished his sentence, he pulled the blade out and the ground and lifted it above his head with such ease that everyone was shocked. That thing had to weigh a ton. As Naruto looked at Zaku, a sort of blue energy started to gather around Zangetsu. You should all know what happens next. I promised that I was going to kill you too, and I always keep my promises. Getsuga Tenzo. As he finished speaking, he swung the blade down and a blue crescent arc of energy exploded from his sword and raced towards the two sound ninja. They tried to escape but found that they were held in place by two Kage Bunshins and couldn't move. They watched helplessly as the crescent arc raced towards them, destroying everything in its path, and they realized that they should never have pissed off the man with the eyes of God, and then they saw nothing. The result of the attack caused a lot of dust and debris to rise up, obscuring the destruction. As the aftermath of the technique came into view, and it baffled everyone who saw it. The destruction that one attack caused stretched out to about 60 meters and it destroyed everything that was unfortunate enough to touch it. But what was most amazing was that the cut on the ground was so clean, so perfect that it gave them a clue as to why the attack meant moon fang piercing the heavens, and bleach ost chakaku. As they turned their eyes to Naruto, who was inspecting both a heaven and an earth scroll in his hands, and put them away into his pocket and turned to Kin. Are you alright, Odoheim? He said with a smile that made her turn red like a beacon. I am fine, she replied while looking away. Naruto just chuckled and finally had time to get look at her. She had a beautiful face with dark eyes and long silky black hair that was tied at the end with a purple ribbon, and a round face that made him fight down a blush. She wore a sleeveless green vest that held in her impressive B-cups and a camo neck warmer, as well as camo pants and a camo skirt and a kunai pouch on her right thigh. She also wore ninja sandals that went halfway up her shins. Naruto then turned and looked at Sasuke's unconscious body and frowned. Hey Hogyoku, do you feel that dark aura coming from Sasuke's neck? Instead of Hogyoku answering like he thought it would, Minato answered, I've felt that aura before, Naruto. That's from the curse mark I told you about. You have to get rid of it now. Naruto was surprised by this. His father told him about Orochimaru's curse mark and how dangerous it is, and if Sasuke had it then it can't be good. Naruto then shunpoed over to Sasuke, shocking the others, since when could Naruto move so fast, was the collective thought they all shared. As Naruto was pulled down Sasuke's collar and saw a mark on his neck that looked like 3 tomos, not unlike the Sharingan, he turned to Sakura and the others. I'm going to have to seal this mark up, so don't worry. And with that he unsealed a brush and bottle of ink and started the sealing process, shocking the others more considering sealing was supposed to be a really advanced subject. What nobody, not even Naruto, knew though, was that the Hogyoku poured some ryatsu into the calligraphy markings of the seal. 15 minutes later, the mark was sealed off and Naruto lifted the Uchiha's still unconscious body onto his back and turned to the others. Well, come on guys, let's get to the tower. Team 10 and Team Guy just looked at him, and the now conscious Rock Lee asked their collective thought. But Naruto-kun, during this stage we are technically enemies. Wouldn't it be rather unyouthful to travel with your enemy? The others simply nodded. In response, the Namikaze just held up 3 fingers. Okay, 1, never call me Naruto-kun, it's kind of creepy, he said, which made Lee have waterfall tears in his face while the other's sweat dropped. 2, please don't talk about you so much, it gets a little annoying. And 3, we are leaf ninjas, we help our own no matter what, it's like what Kakashi-sensei told us. Those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon their comrades are worse than scum, and as far as I'm concerned, as long as we wear these headbands, we're comrades. And I can already tell you guys how the scrolls required to pass, so, let's go. The others now saw Naruto in a new light. Those are the words a leader says to a team. But then Shikamaru remembered something. Hey Naruto. After he was sure he had the blonde's attention, he continued, what are we going to do about her? It would be troublesome if she ran off and alerted her boss about what happened, the lazy genius said while motioning to a fidgety kin who had all eyes on her. Well, the answer should be obvious, Shika. Everyone leaned in to hear what he would say. We take her with us, he said with a nonchalant shrug, as if it was the simplest thing ever, which made everyone face fault. Our favorite blonde just chuckled at their expressions and started speaking again. Besides, she won't try anything since there's only one of her but 9 of us, and she's now under the protection of my clan so that those greedy civilian council members don't try anything with her. He snarled a bit at the end, surprising the others. Ino then asked a question that was bugging both her and everyone else. Hey Naruto, why do you look so different now, and what do you mean your clan? I didn't think you had a clan. Naruto sighed. He knew he would have to explain this, but also knew he would have to talk to council as well and didn't want to repeat himself. I'll explain everything later. It would suck if I had to explain everything all over again. Everyone nodded at that. It did make sense after all. Naruto then turned to Kin. Come on Odoheim, let's get to the tower so you can rest, he said with his patented fox grin on his face, making her blush up a storm. She nodded her head. Hi Naruto-sama, she said while bowing to him. He sighed. Please, don't call my Naruto-sama, it's weird. Just call me Naruto or Naruto-kun, okay? He finished with a comforting smile, making her blush even more. After that, everyone started making their way to the tower, though Naruto had to carry Sasuke on his back still, and despite their offerings to help, Rock Lee decided to tree hop without help, claiming his flames of youth had already healed him, and to everyone's astonishment, he seemed perfectly fine. As they were making their way to the tower, everyone's thoughts kept going back to the blonde enigma known as Naruto Uzumaki. Everyone thought that they had him figured out, even Kin thought so after his antics during the first stage and beginning of the second. But just as you think you can read him like a book, he does something that throws you for a loop. He was, as Shikamaru says, a troublesome blonde, and they had to admit, that pretty much sums it up. As they were making their way through the trees, everyone had their own thoughts going through their heads. TCH, troublesome blonde. Why can't you be simple and not so troublesome? You give me so many headaches, the genius Nara thought as he felt a migraine coming on. Man, Naruto looks so strong, and that attack he did earlier, I hope I never have to fight him. Team 10's I mean Big Bone member, Chuji thought to himself. Oh Kami, look at those muscles, they're so ho-and-oh. Bad Ino, you love Sasuke. These were the thoughts running through the head of Konoha's gossip queen. I still can't believe Naruto-kun changed so much in such a short time. It's so youthful. I really shouldn't have to say who this is. It doesn't matter if he did that attack earlier, those two just underestimated him, and they paid for it. Fate deemed they would die, thought the branded Hyuga. Oh my god, look at those swords, they look so beautiful. I wonder what they look like in battle. Tenten thought with a blush on her face as her thoughts shifted to Naruto's other sword. I still can't believe that the short, loudmouth kid is this hot piece of Kin. Remember, don't think perverted thoughts. You'll get him later, Kin repeated like a mantra in her head. I can't believe Naruto changed so much. He seems so much more responsible, and when he killed those 2 Otonins earlier, am I going to have to kill to one day? Naruto's pink-haired teammate thought as she had an internal conflict with herself. Naruto himself was oblivious to their thoughts and decided to talk to the others in his head, which now that he thinks about it, would make him sound insane if he was anyone else and said that. But Naruto isn't anyone else, oh no, he is Naruto Uzumaki Namikaze. As Naruto opened up the mental link, he decided to ask a question that was bugging him for a while. Hey, Kaachan, Tusan, do you think Sarutobi Ajisen will let me use those bodies for my 6 paths of soul? As he waited for an answer, his mother decided to answer. I'm not sure, Sochi. He might protest at first, thinking that you would just use the bodies, but after you explain to him about how you can have your paths keep their personality, he might agree, since I'm sure he'd love to see and talk to them again. Naruto was still a bit confused. But why would he agree after I explained it to him? This is where his father decided to clarify. You see, Sochi, Sarutobi and those bodies were really close when they were alive, so if Sarutobi gets a chance to see them again, then he will probably agree. Naruto mentally nodded and then smiled internally as Benetsuke made herself known. You must remember, Naruto-koi, those bodies might be easy to get, but the other ones will be more difficult. And let's not forget about that promise you made to me that made Naruto sigh happily. How could he not remember? He remembered that day perfectly. Flashback. It was 3.5 years into his training and Naruto was currently walking back to the mansion that he put in his IW. As he passed a relatively large boulder he heard sniffing as if someone was crying. Naturally Naruto grew concerned by this. Who would be crying in his IW? So he decided to check it out, and what he saw shocked him. When he got around the boulder he saw Benetsuke crying while holding something close to her perfect DD breasts. She seemed so caught up in it that she didn't sense him. When she pulled the object away from her to look at it he could also see it, which shocked him even more. She was holding a picture of him which looked damp on some parts, must be from crying, he absently thought to himself. He was snapped out of his thoughts when she started speaking. Oh my sweet Naruto, if only you knew how much my heart longs for you and my skin aches to feel your gentle touch, she said in between sniffs as she looked at the photo longingly. Now Naruto was shocked. What did she mean by that? He was snapped out of his thoughts again as she started to speak as she held the photo close to her again as if it would disappear if she let it go. If only, my sweet Naruto-kun, you knew how much I love you. If only you knew. Her voice faded off as she started to sob. Naruto felt bad now. How could he not notice sooner? During training if she helped him with something and had to touch him, she always seemed to savor their contact. Whenever he would call her Beni-chan she seemed to blush and had a look of bliss on her face. And whenever they had an accident during taijutsu training, she always seemed to position herself to where there was no chance to avoid falling onto her, and ending up in a few suggestive situations, and she gained a dreamy look in her eyes. He just felt so stupid for not seeing it sooner. If he had just noticed sooner, she wouldn't be crying like this. As Naruto started walking towards her, which alerted her to his presence, she snapped her head towards him and went wide-eyed. She quickly put the picture away and wiped the excess moisture from her eyes and looked at him as if nothing happened. Yes, Naruto? Her melodic voice slightly wavered at the end as she looked at him. He sighed and looked her straight in the eyes. Is what you said true? He asked in an unsure voice. She just looked at him as if she didn't know what he meant, but her eyes betrayed her facial expression. He saw many emotions flash through her eyes, the most prominent being love, longing, denial, hurt, fear, and a trace of lust. As she looked at him, she said with a shaky voice, I have no idea what you mean. Benetsuke, I heard you, please don't lie to me. He said with a bit of hurt in his voice which made her flinch a bit. She hated when he sounded like that. She turned away and he looked at her sadly. Please Benetsuke, you can talk to me, he said while putting a hand on her shoulder. She flinched away from his touch. That shocked him. Why is she acting like this? He tried again and again but she just kept refusing to let him touch her. Finally he sighed and asked her, what's wrong, Benetsuke? He told her in a soft yet firm voice. Her response was just an incoherent mumbled sentence. Can you repeat that? Again she just mumbled a response which he still couldn't hear even though it was a bit louder. Benetsuke, I can't hear you, he said in a comforting voice. I said I don't deserve your touch. The red-headed beauty screamed at him, which made him step back in shock. What do you mean? He stuttered out. She just looked at him with tears running down her face. Don't you get it? It's my fault you lived your life the way you did. It's my fault you didn't grow up with a family. If I had just fought against that stupid genjutsu that masked man put me in, then none of it would have happened. It's my fault, don't you get? It's all my fault. She screamed at the end and held on to herself, as she started to cry hysterically, and rock herself back and forth. Naruto just stared at her with a gobsmacked expression. He never thought that she felt that way. As she noticed Naruto approach her, she thought that he would hit her for ruining his life and braced herself, but was shocked when she felt a pair of arms wrap around her and pull her into a tight embrace. Insert bleach OST here to stay. Naruto just held on tight to her, ignoring her hysterical cries to let her go and wincing every now and then as she tried to use her claws to make him let her go. He hated seeing her like this, even though most people thought that since she was the Kyuubi she was nothing but a bloodthirsty monster. But that was far from the truth. She was actually a very complex person. She would help you if you gained her trust, but if you broke it she would kill you. She was very compassionate, kind, and caring to those she considered precious. But she was ruthless, cold, and merciless to those she deemed as a threat. She was not the Kyuubi no Kitsune, the bloodthirsty monster everyone thought she was. She was Benetsuke, A woman that loves flowers and plants, feeling the sunlight on her flawless skin, and eating fresh rabbit every chance she gets. She hated those that abuse animals, those who think they can get away with whatever they please without consequences, and those that use others and throw them away without so much as a second thought. She was also the woman that he loved. Shushu, it's okay, Benetsuki-chan. It's okay, just please stop crying, he said in the most soothing voice possible, while slowly rubbing her back. It worked as she stopped struggling but kept crying into his shirt. Why? Was her muffled reply. He just rested his chin on her head and replied, why what? It was silent for a few moments, and she asked, why would you make me feel better if I'm the one that ruined your life? He just sighed and held her closer. Why indeed? Why would I help the very person that is the cause of my pain? This made her stiffen until he started talking again. But I didn't help the person that ruined my life. I helped you. This confused her, and before she could ask a question he started again. You didn't ruin my life, the man that put you in a genjutsu did, and the villagers as well for not being able to tell the difference between us. When I was younger, you were always the one to heal my injuries, even if you had your own agenda to do so. It's still more than others did. Besides, I don't blame you for what happened. I blame that masked man. And I want you to know that, to me, you'd never be the person that ruined my life. You'd be the woman that I love. He finished, making her look up in shock, but before she could say anything she felt his lips crash into hers. She just stared wide-eyed for a few seconds, but then melted into the kiss as they put more passion into it. As this was happening, Benetsuki intertwined her fingers into Naruto's spiky blonde hair, deepening the kiss even more. Naruto licked Benetsuki's bottom lip as if asking for entrance to her mouth, which she gladly gave him. They both moaned into the other's mouth in pleasure as their tongues battled for dominance until finally, Benetsuki surrendered to Naruto, who started to explore from mouth with his tongue. As the Namikaze air was ravaging her mouth, Benetsuki started to grind against Naruto's waist, making him moan into her mouth, sending pleasurable vibrations through her, and making her eyes roll into the back of her head. From his sensations, they continued their make-out session for a few more minutes, where each of them were in pure bliss before they pulled apart for air and panted for breath. Benetsuki then pulled him into a tight hug and whispered into his ear, I love you, Naruto-kun. I love you, Bensuki-hime. I can't wait until I get you out of the seal. That made her back straighten up and look at him like he was crazy. But Naruto-kun, if you do that then you'd die, she said while trying to keep the hysteria out of her voice. Naruto just sighed and rested his chin in the crook of her neck and replied, not if I work on a seal that would release you safely, without killing me. The only reason people say Jinchuriki die when they have their biju extracted is because no one's ever tried to make a seal that would allow them to live. Benetsuki nodded hesitantly at that. She had to admit that no one has tried to do that before, and if anyone can do it, it'd be Naruto, her Naruto. She smiled at the thought. Naruto pulled away from her neck and looked straight at her with eyes full of love and compassion. I promise you that I will find a way to free you so we can be together outside. Nothing will stop me. He then sealed the deal with a kiss. And Bleach OST here to stay. Flashback end. Ever since that day, Naruto would always work on a seal that would allow him to free her from the seal. During training he would have clones work on it, and after training he would also work on it. After many failed tries, he was happy to say that now, he was almost done. Although to actually bring her out of the seal he would need a corpse that's only 24 hours old. He couldn't bring himself to kill someone just for the woman he loves, so he decided that if they fight another village, he would take a corpse of an enemy kunoichi that died in battle and use it to get Benetsuki out of the seal. Though it's not like they're going to be attacked anytime soon, right? Oh, if only he knew. Of course, Benetsuki-hime, how would I ever forget, he said, which made her giggle a little. She knew he would never forget, but she always loved when he would admit it to her. Naruto must have gotten lost in memory lane, seeing as how when his eyes refocused he saw that he and the others were now in front of the tower. Well, he said, getting everyone's attention, let's get this over with. He finished as he started walking towards the door, prompting the others to follow. Though suspiciously, Kin was already next to Naruto, as if she was always next to him and appeared to be inching closer to him. The others noticed this but didn't say anything, thinking that Naruto was still the oblivious knucklehead he was before when it came to women. Oh, how wrong they were. Thanks to Benetsuki, Naruto could now tell when a girl had feelings for him, and knew that Kin felt an attraction to him. He also realized that Hinata was head over heels for him, borderlining on fangirl, and felt bad that he couldn't return her feelings. He also lost all his feelings for Sakura and now looked at her as a little sister instead of a love interest. As they entered the tower they found themselves in a small room that had no door but did have a riddle hanging up on the wall. As the others were trying to figure out the riddle, Naruto had already figured it out and laid Sasuke on the floor and took out his 2 scrolls, making the others look at him and do the same. He turned to them. Okay guys, open your scrolls and throw them on the floor, and don't question why, just trust me. They decided not to as they heard the seriousness in his face, and found it hard not to obey him when he uses that voice. The truth was that Naruto knew what would happen since his father had told him. As they opened the scrolls, they noticed strange markings on them and grew curious but immediately grew concerned when the scrolls started smoking. They turned to Naruto and saw him throw his scrolls to the floor and decided to do so as well. Good thing too, since when they did there were a few puffs of smoke and as it cleared they were able to see what happened, and when they did they were shocked. Standing there were three figures that they recognized all too well. One was a man with tan skin that looked to be in his early 20s, dark brown eyes, a pineapple-styled hairdo, and a horizontal scar across his nose. He wore dark blue shinobi pants, a dark blue long-sleeved shirt, a green chunin flak jacket, and a blue-clothed Konoha Hittite. This man was Iruka Umino, their academy instructor and one of Naruto's first friends. The second one was a tall man with tan skin, dark eyes, spiky hair, a pointed beard, and a cigarette hanging loosely from his mouth. He wore the same clothes as Iruka, with the addition of a sash on his waist that identified him as one of the 12 guardian ninjas of Hai no Kuni. He also had 2 trench knives on his waist. This man was Asuma Sarutobi, sensei of Team 10 and son of the Sandaime Hokage. It was the third person, however, that they were looking as weirdly, with the exception of Rock Lee, who was looking at him with stars in his eyes. The man had a bowl-cut hairstyle, green spandex that made you want to gouge your eyes out, and the most bushiest eyebrows ever, which made them wonder if they were alive. The man also wore orange leg warmers, an unzipped jounin flak jacket, and a red-clothed Konoha Hittite that he wore as a belt. This man is Mato Guy, sensei of Team 9 and Konoha's Green Beast. The 3 higher-ranked shinobi also seemed confused at why they were all here. They shouldn't be in the same place as each other. As their gazes landed on the genin, they were all shocked as they saw a mini Sandaime Hokage right down to the blonde hair and bright blue eyes. He can turn it on and off since he completely mastered it, and an Otoku no Ichi. Upon closer inspection they noticed 6 faded whisker marks on his face, and their eyes grew wide. Naruto? Iruka asked with a shocked voice. At the blonde's nod, Naruto suddenly found himself pulled into a hug by Iruka, who pulled away and asked the question that was still on everyone's mind: what happened to you? Naruto sighed, and answered with the same response he used earlier. I don't want to repeat myself, Iruka-sensei. I'd rather just say it once in front of the council, since I know those bastards will want to know, and make sure that it's not Benetsuki-chan's influence on me. Now everyone was confused. Who was Benetsuki? Naruto, not to be rude or anything, but who's Benetsuki? Asuma, as he took a drag from his cigarette. Naruto just chuckled in reply. All will be revealed in time, was his cryptic message. Some were getting frustrated with his little word games, except Kin, who thought it was cool. It was at this point that Konoha's Green Beast decided to add his own comments. YOSH. Let me, Mato Guy, Konoha's beautiful Green Beast and living springtime of youth, congratulate you on how you all youthfully came here together. No one has ever youthfully decided to do that before. You all must have youthfully decided to youthfully help each other in the most youthful forest. That is so youthful of you all. Guy finished with his signature nice guy pose, getting various reactions from everyone. Asuma and Iruka cleaned out their ears, thinking that they lost some hearing. Ino, Sakura, and Kin were trying to get the image out of their minds but found that they couldn't, though Kin found herself thinking about how a green spandex suit like that would look while hugging Naruto's manhood, which made a small amount of blood fall from her nose. Shikamaru muttered troublesome under his breath and held his head and closed his eyes. Chuji dropped his chips and stepped back in fear and was pale. Niji and Tenten acted as if this was a normal thing. Naruto felt his left eye twitch, and Lee had a star-struck expression on his face. Rock Lee decided to respond to Guy's yell with an equally loud yell of his own. YOSHGI-sensei. It was all Naruto SAN's most youthful idea to youthfully head to the tower together. What happened next was something that would forever be burned into their memories forever. Somehow a sunset appeared behind the 2 spandex-clad men, and it made the sight all the more horrendous. Lee, GI-sensei, Lee, GICN dash. Their little sunset act was cut short when everyone heard a shout of Hado No. 4, Byakurai. And a bolt of white lightning shot the background and made it shatter like glass. Everyone turned to see Naruto with his hand outstretched with his index and middle fingers smoking a bit at the tips. Never do that again, he said in a voice so calm and chilling that it made Guy and Lee cower together in fear of the blonde. He wasn't the only one wanting to do that, since Minato, Kushina, Benetsuki, and even Hogyoku wanted to end that nightmare of a genjutsu. After that little incident, The higher-ranking ninja took notice of Sasuke's unconscious body and grew concerned. What happened to Sasuke? Is he alright? Was the question that came out of Irika's mouth. Naruto just nodded. Yes, he's alright, he just needs some rest, and then he'll wake up in a few hours. The others just sighed at that. Well, you guys do have around 2 days left, so you should go get rest, was Asuma's comment. Naruto then gained a thoughtful expression, and a few moments later a large mischievous grin that was all too familiar to the others spread across his face. Hey Irika-sensei. When he was sure he had the man's attention, he continued, can you tell Hokage Jiji to call for a council meeting? I have some important things that I need to tell them. He then let out a small evil chuckle along with Benetsuke and the others in his head, making everyone shiver slightly. It's time that those bastard civilians along with the elders found out just who they've been abusing all this time. Chapter 3. Making the council his bitch. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the Sandaime Hokage, was inside the council room along with all the council members, which consisted of all the clan heads minus the Senju, Uchiha, and Namikaze clan heads. The latter he somewhat regretted, seeing as how there was an heir to the Namikaze, but he didn't let them know. He hopes that Naruto becomes a chunin so that he could announce Naruto's heritage to the village. But anyway, we're getting off track. The clan heads were Hayashi Hyuga, Suminazuka, Shibi Aburame, Shikaku Nara, Chuza Akimichi, and Inoichi Yamanaka. The council also consisted of the village elders, which were his old teammates Hamaru Mitomo and Koharu Udatane, and his old rival Danzo Shimura, and the civilian council members. Other high-ranking ninja were there as well, such as Kakashi Hatake, Asuma Sarutobi, Mado Gai, Kurenai Yuhi, Anko Mitarashi, Yugao Yuzuki, Ibiki Marino, Genmai Shiranui, and Gekko Hate. Alongside him were the Reikage, and the Mizukage Meitarimi, and their respective bodyguards, even though they didn't really need them. Standing behind the muscle-bound Reikage was his brother Karabi, or as he likes to be called Killer B, and Yujito Ni, and behind the Mizukage, not in that way super perverts, were her bodyguards Ao and Chojuro, the youngest member of the 7 Swordsmen of the Mist. As everyone was talking about why they were here, Sarutobi remembered why he called for a council meeting. Flashback. As Sarutobi was having a meeting with the Reikage and Mizukage and their bodyguards in his makeshift office in the Forest of Death, they were discussing the chunin exams. Well, Reikage Dano, Mizukage Dano, I hope that you are enjoying the exams, and I see that you bought. His words were cut short as Irika burst into the room. Hokage-sama, the chunin said while catching his breath. The Hokage raised an eyebrow at him. Yes, what is it, Irika? The chunin looked up. Sir, could you please call a council meeting? This confused the others in the room. Why would I do that, Irika? Is something wrong? The chunin blushed in embarrassment, and scratched the back of his head. Well, I'm not sure, sir. This confused the others even more. What do you mean you're not sure? Well, you see, sir, Naruto just told me if I could tell you to call a council meeting. He didn't specify why, he just said that he had some important things to tell them, and then chuckled evilly. I can still feel the chill in my spine. He also said to have the Jounin senseis there as well. He also seemed different. He also looked different. Sir, do you think it might be trying to influence him? Sarutobi contemplated on that. I'm not sure, Irika, but if it is, you know what, trying to influence the boy, the only way to find out is to call the council meeting and see what he wants. I just pray that it isn't trying to get out of the seal. They both refrained from mentioning the Kyuubi since they didn't want the Reikage or Mizukage to know, thinking that would hate Naruto like the villagers. What they didn't know was that the others already knew what they were talking about due to their past experiences with Jinchuriki and the fact that 2 of them were Jinchuriki, so it wasn't hard to figure out, but decided to play along. The Hokage then rubbed his temples. ANBU. He called out, and immediately a masked ANBU member appeared in front of him. Yes, Hokage-sama? Sarutobi sighed and replied, gather all the council members as well as Ibiki, Anko, Kurenai, Yugao, Gekko, Genma, Asuma, Gai, and tell Kakashi that if he's late then I'll burn his Ika paradise. Sarutobi said, which made the ANBU and Irika cringe. They knew how much his Ika meant to Kakashi, and saying that to him would be like threatening his child. Hi, Hokage-sama. The ANBU quickly said and disappeared. He turned to the Reikage and Mizukage and sighed again. I'm sorry, but can we finish this later? He asked. But the Reikage simply said, yes we can, although we do wish to go to the council meeting with you. Sarutobi was surprised and turned to the Mizukage for support, but she just smiled and said, I too would like to be at the council meeting. If anything that was just said has any truth to it, then it would prove to be most interesting. She said with a slight purr in her voice that Ao and Chojuro knew all too well and felt bad for this Naruto that seems to have piqued her interest. Flashback end. As Sarutobi and everyone else was waiting, an odd man with spiky white hair, kabuki clothes, and a giant scroll on his back appeared, shocking some people. Kakashi looked at the man and asked the question most people were thinking, Jiraiya-sama, what are you doing here? Jiraiya just looked at him and replied, Sarutobi-sensei asked me to come here, though he didn't particularly tell me why. Everyone just looked to Sarutobi, but he just sighed. You will all find out when the meeting begins, he said in a wizened manner, and the civilian council members and the elders just frowned. Why couldn't the old bastard just tell them what was going on? Everyone just went back to muttering, though Kakashi was reading his Aika, which got a few glares from the females. Did he have to read that smut in public? All muttering stopped when the door was violently kicked open and flew off its hinges and hit the floor with a loud bang that made the civilians jump. As everyone looked towards where the door used to be and got the shock of their lives, while Guy and Asuma didn't see as they saw it earlier. There standing in the doorway was a teenage version of the yandere with a big cheery expression of his face and an otokunoichi at his side along with 3 clan heirs as well as Sakura Haruno and Guy's team. As everyone was still shell-shocked, Shikamaru turned to Naruto. Troublesome, did you have to kick the door down? He said, which made Naruto chuckle and say, well, how else am I supposed to make an entrance? The blonde then turned to the civilian council members and his cheery smile turned into a sadistic one that put everyone of edge and said, how's it going, bitches? That snapped everyone out of their stupor and Kakashi looked at the mini yandere. Minato-sensei? He said in a hopeful voice, but to everyone's shock, the yandere shook his head and said, no, I'm not him, Kakashi-sensei. Now everyone knew that this was Naruto, though the civilian council members decided to be stupid as usual and make a huge mistake. You demon! You dare mock us by taking the form of our precious yandere? We should have you executed for your crimes, demon brat. A foolish civilian sneered at Naruto, who just looked at him with an impassive face and then turned to the Hokage. Insert Bleach OST on the precipice of defeat. Hey Aji-san, your law is still in effect, right? At first everyone was confused by his question, but then caught on and a few shinobi smirked, including Sarutobi, who just nodded and replied in a grandfatherly voice, why, last time I checked, it was. Naruto just smirked a very sadistic smirk that sent chills up the spines of everyone but struck fear in the civilian council and elders as they realized their mistake. Naruto then turned to the civilian that talked to him and held his hand out, confusing some people for breaking an S-class law. You are sentenced to execution. He then started chanting, Ye Lord, mask of flesh and bone, all creation, flutter of wings, ye who bears the name of man, truth and temperance, upon this sinless wall of dreams unleash but slightly the wrath of your claws. Heido number 33, Sukatsui. To the shinobi's fascination and the civilian's horror, blue fire shot out of the blonde's hand and enveloped the civilian, causing a small explosion that obscured everyone's view. As the dust began to clear away, everyone was shocked, with the exception of those that saw the Getsuga Tensho in the forest of death, but were still a little surprised by the destruction. The idiotic civilian was completely obliterated, leaving nothing, not even any blood left, and the part of the table he sat behind was burnt and was crumbling. As everyone turned to Naruto, they saw that he didn't even bat an eye at what just happened. In fact, he just looked bored and sighed. Well, now that the idiot is gone, on to business, he said in a voice that made everyone in the room straighten up at the authority in it, though the Jounins, clan heads, and Kages tried to hide it. And Bleach OST on the precipice of defeat. B then decided to go up to his fellow Jinchuriki and talk to him, or should I say rap? Yo, number 9, how you like my rhymes? Yo, I can tell that dude just fucked up, so what's up? And how do he and you get along? And don't think about answering wrong, he said while some kind of music played in the background, making some people if he used a small genjutsu. The people who didn't know about B's rapping were all looking at him strangely except for Guy, who was crying and muttering about how youthful B was. And Yujito just sighed at B's lame rhymes. Naruto merely chuckled and fist bumped B. Yo, yeah, I'm number 9, and I'm doing just fine. But what's up with the he? If you knew anything, then you know the one I hold is a SHE. And yeah, that dude fucked up and it's not okay. I don't let anyone say that about MY Beneheim, he said, which made people look at him, mouths agape, since when could Naruto rap? And how can he rap good? B just laughed and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Those were some nice rhymes you got there, yo, almost as nice as that hair. He finished by ruffling Naruto's hair. Naruto just chuckled and rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Thanks, that was my first time rapping, he said, shocking B and the others. Their moment was ruined by an idiotic civilian that seemed to have forgotten what just happened to the other civilian a few seats away from him. What are you even doing, demon? You should go away since this meeting is for humans only. We are the council and our word is law. Naruto just looked at him and smirked. You know it's considered treason to threaten a clan heir, he said, confusing everyone, though Sarutobi, Jiraiya, and Kakashi were a bit shocked. Did he find out? Kohara decided to ask what he meant, And what clan would you be the heir of I mean Uzumaki? Others noticed that she refrained from calling him a demon after witnessing what happened to the civilian council member. Though Mei was shocked, Uzumaki? But that's the name of the person I was supposed to marry. But that ANB with the blank mask said that he was dead, said Uzumaki, just chuckled in a way that sent chills up their spines. Well, actually the question should be which 3 clans am I heir of, he said, confusing everyone. But before they could get a chance to reply, Naruto started talking again. You see, I'm the heir of the Uzumaki clan, the Senju clan, and he paused, which made them lean in closer. Naruto inwardly smirked. It was time to drop the bombshell, the Namikaze clan. I am son of Minato Namikaze, Konoha's Yellow Flash, and Kushina Uzumaki, Konoha's Red Death. Silence. That was all there was. Everyone was so shocked and silent that you could hear a pin drop. Everyone was shocked for their own reasons, though. The clan heads were shocked since they didn't know Minato and Kushina had a son and felt so stupid for not figuring it out sooner. The kid looked just like Minato and acted just like Kushina, right down to the ramen addiction. The genin were shocked since they always called Naruto a clan-less loser in the academy, or believed that his family was so poor they had to give him up, but now they find out that he's practically royalty. Tenten felt like fainting because Kushina Uzumaki was one of her idols as a kunoichi. The civilians were shocked because they couldn't believe what he said. The elders were shocked that they didn't make him into a weapon sooner. The foreign Kages and their bodyguards were shocked because they actually had marriage contracts arranged to the Yondaime Hokage's son, who they thought had died. I had arranged a marriage between Yujito and the Yondaime Hokage's son, and Mei was arranged to marry him also. The Jounins were shocked because even though they didn't have anything against Naruto, they never tried to help him either. Sarutobi, Jiraiya, and Kakashi were shocked that Naruto found out but were confused about the Senju clan one. A civilian who had a strong hate for the Kyuubi looked at Naruto. Yoyu Lai, Yondaime-sama never had a son. And no demon can be heir to the Senju clan, he said in a shaky voice. Naruto and the other shinobi gave him deadpan looks. Honestly, how stupid could civilians be? Of course my father wouldn't announce that Ka-san was pregnant. If IWA found out, then they would have attacked her or sent assassins after me because of their hate of my father, Naruto stated, but the same civilian kept going. Well, if he did have a son, why wouldn't he have it with a strong Konoha kunoichi, instead of some whore from another country? As soon as he finished that sentence, the room's temperature felt like it dropped about 20 degrees. Inside of the seal, Hogyoku, Benetsuki, Minato, and Kushina were shaking their heads at the civilian, though if they were honest they would admit that they felt sorry for the civilian. They knew Naruto loved Kushina as much as a son could love his mother, and was very protective of her. They remembered the last time someone insulted Kushina in front of him, even though they didn't know it. It was actually the reason he had a heaven scroll when he went to help his team. Flashback. As Naruto was shumping to where his team was, he accidentally tripped a wire that sent a few kunai flying at him. He used Shunpa to escape them and decided to see who set up the traps, so he stopped. Out of the trees came 3 Amnins, each wearing yellow bodysuits and wearing breathing masks. The lead one, with Spiky, spoke to his 2 teammates while keeping his eyes on Naruto. Well, look what we got here, boys. Some Konoha punk got lost in the forest. What'd say we kill him and take his scroll? The one to his left just chuckled and said sure, why not, and even if he doesn't have it, there's always other teams in this forest. The final one started talking. Hey guys, you saw how fast he was moving, right? They both nodded their heads. Yeah, what of it? The leader said. The one that talked just chuckled. When people move that fast, it usually means their parents taught them. What do you think his mom will act like when she finds out that her son is dead? This piqued Naruto's interest. The leader just looked confused. What do you mean? She'll probably be devastated, right? At their nods he continued. And you know how Konoha kunoichi are hot as hell, right? They seemed to catch on now, and Naruto narrowed his eyes. Yeah, what of it? The one to the leader's left asked. How about when we tell her he's dead, we comfort her and show her a good time? He said with a perverted giggle, and his teammates joined in. Yeah, we'll have her sucking our cocks like a slut by the time we're done with her. Naruto's eyes glowed with a cold fury at what the ninjas just said. His teammates can wait. He will make these bastards pay for what they said about his precious Ka-san. Insert Naruto OST heavy violence. Before any more perverted comments could be made, they dropped to their knees at the sudden pressure that filled the clearing. Naruto had secretly made a few seals earlier so that others wouldn't feel his ryatsu in the forest. It was so intense that they thought that they saw distortions in the air and felt like their hearts would explode at any moment. They looked at the blonde who they thought would be an easy kill and noticed that he had his hand gripped onto the lavender-handled sword in the white sheath and was looking at them with his ringed purplish-silver eyes that have a tint of pink now with such fury that they thought they were looking into the eyes of the Shinigami itself. Oh, they didn't know just how right they were, as the one who they knew was going to pass judgment upon them slowly draw the sword and hold it to where the tip of the blade was pointing to the ground. If you don't know what happens next, then crawl out from under your rock, and said in a chilling voice, "Let's get one thing straight. I don't care if you insult me, but if you ever, and I mean ever, insult my Ka-san, you will die." He dropped the blade, which seemed to fall into the ground as if it was water and create ripples as if the ground was water. Bankai. They heard the blonde say and looked up to see, to their horror, giant blades rise up from the ground and form 2 rows on either side of the blonde Shinigami, who said 3 simple words that sealed their fate: scatter, Senbenzakura Kagyoshi. That phrase alone made the blades disintegrate into thousands of cherry blossoms. Naruto used a quick Bansho Tenin to take their heaven scroll. All they could do was watch on as the thousands of cherry blossoms came towards them before they felt the most unimaginable pain they ever felt in their lives. The vibrant display of the cherry blossoms had shredded each and every one of them to the point where there wasn't much left of their bodies at all. The only things left were a couple of shredded pieces of cloth, a few pieces of flesh, and a lot of blood. Naruto just looked coldly at their remains, sheathed Senbenzakura and shunpoed away. Although the words "no one insults my Ka-san" did carry off in the wind, and Naruto OST heavy violence, flashback and, as everyone shivered a little, the idiotic civilian felt a twinge of dread run up his spine. Everyone looked at Naruto and noticed that his hair was shadowing his eyes. As he looked up, they noticed he had them closed, and to the shinobis it felt like he was gathering chakra into his eyes, which confused them. He suddenly snapped his eyes open and everyone in the room gasped in shock. Gone were Naruto's bright cerulean eyes. They were now replaced with purplish silver eyes with 5 centric rings forming a ripple pattern around the small pupil that seemed to glow in an ice-cold fury. The shinobis in the room only had one thought in mind: Rinnegan, although Jiraiya looks like he just saw a ghost. The dumbass civilians who didn't know shit about ninjas thought it was some demonic thing the QB has. Naruto gripped the hilt of Senbenzakura and released some of his spiritual pressure, shocking everyone even more. The civilians and elders felt like their hearts would explode, though the civilians thought it was just his demonic aura. The shinobis who felt his power in the forest of death were thinking a mile a minute, although the most prominent thought that they all shared was that power earlier was him. Naruto released more pressure than he did in the forest of death though, so people all throughout the village felt it, and stopped dead in their tracks. In Yujito's head, Nibi was screaming at her container, "Now kitten! You must strip him and take him now, and if not then let me take control for a bit so that I can let him ride me 6 ways till Sunday." The two-tailed Biju finished with a perverted giggle that would have made Jiraiya proud. Though Yujito had other ideas. "No, I don't think so, Nibi. I might actually take your advice and lock him in a room with me later and ride him like a horse till I can't walk straight." She mentally told Nibi without actually knowing what she said, and only realized it when Nibi sniffed and said, "I'm so proud of you, kitten." And she blushed beet red. "Damn you, Nibi, you're turning me into a pervert," she mentally screamed. All of a sudden Sarutobi, Kakashi, Jiraiya, and Benetsuki sneezed at the same time, making them all look at each other oddly, though they couldn't look at Benetsuki. Naruto was still looking at the civilian council member with those cold eye and unsheathed Senbenzakura. "Never, and I mean never, insult my Ka-san, though it's wasted on you since dead men can't correct things," he said in one of the most chilling voices they ever heard that it felt like the room's temperature dropped a few more degrees. The civilian looked on in horror as Naruto held up his sword vertical to his face and said 2 simple words: "Scatter, Senbenzakura," and his blade disintegrated into 1,000 cherry blossoms that he would have laughed at, had it not been for fact that his body was shredded to pieces by the so-called harmless cherry blossoms, as he was going to put it. As everyone watched the civilian get cut up, the shinobis were fascinated by the abilities of the sword and how it could make 1,000 sharp cherry blossoms that can shred an enemy. After Naruto was sure that the civilians and elders learned their lessons about insulting his Ka-san, he let up his spiritual pressure so that everyone could breathe regularly again. Before Naruto had a chance to speak again, Guy came up to him and started yelling, "Yosh! It's so youthful of you, Naruto-kun, to so youthfully defend your mother so youthfully like that." He finished with his nice guy pose, creeping people out. Naruto just looked on ahead as if he didn't hear him and then turned to Guy. "HN, you say something, Guy?" he said, getting a prideful look from Kakashi and bewildered looks from others, thinking that Kakashi was rubbing off on Naruto, though the females were hoping he wasn't perverted like Kakashi. And oh, curse you, Kakashi, and your hip attitude for rubbing off on your most youthful student. he said with waterfall tears flowing from his face. Everyone just sweat dropped at his loudness. Naruto then saw Ai and Mei, who didn't have their kage hats on, so he couldn't tell they were the Reikage and the Zukage. He turned to Sarutobi and asked him a question that he thought wasn't a big deal. Hey Gigi. Once he had the man's attention, he motioned to Ai and Mei, who's the bodybuilder and the supermodel sitting next to you. Are you getting rid of the 2 bag of bones you have as advisors and replacing them with them? I hope so. The redhead is way more pleasant to look at than their wrinkled asses. He finished, getting various reactions from everyone in the room. The elders were fuming at what he said, the civilians were appalled, the clan heads were snickering along with the ever-stoic Hayashi and Shibi, who had smirks on their faces. The Jounins and the Hokage were trying their hardest not to laugh, with the exception of Anko and Jiraiya, who were openly laughing at the blonde Gaki's antics. I was snickering as well, along with B and Yujito, who was giggling at her fellow Jinchuriki's actions. Mei had a blush on her face at being called a supermodel, and Ao and Chojuro were smirking as they saw the blush. Sure, guys back in Kiri always hit on her, but it was more in the perverted way. This kid said she was beautiful out of pure honesty, and had no hidden agenda when saying it. Watch your mouth, boy. We are the council and you will respect us. Koharu yelled at him and started to turn a little red in anger, making Jiraiya and others laugh a little. Naruto just looked at her. You know, you should really calm down. They say too much at an old age could lead to a heart attack, though from the looks of it you don't have much time left anyways. He said, which was last straw for the ones that were trying not to laugh. Everyone that was holding in their laughter burst out laughing. All the genin, all the clan heads, the Jounins, and the Kages were now laughing so much that it hurt. Even Hayashi and Shibi were laughing, though they were trying to compose themselves but were failing miserably. As the elders were turning red with anger, Danzo was thinking about using his hidden arm on the boy so that he could make what he thought was the Kyuubi's power. The boy is using his. But then he realized that would cause more problems than good, when considering every shinobi in the room would try to kill him for having Sharingans and Mokuton implanted into his body. As everyone calmed down from laughing, Hayashi asked a question everyone was thinking. Why are you here exactly, young Uzumaki? He asked with a stoic face, but the others could tell that he was still amused at what just happened. Naruto just sighed. Well, I asked Iruka-sensei if he could tell Sarutobi Ajisen if he could gather the council members. This confused some people. Why would the boy want to have a council meeting? Shibi decided to ask, and why would that be, Uzumaki-san? There must be a logical reason behind it. Naruto just smiled and chuckled. Leave it to an Abdurrahim to say something like that. They are the smartest clan in Konoha, second only to the Naras. Well, since I now know of my parents and heritage, I would like to request the keys to the Namikaze/Uzumaki estates, as well as the clan scrolls, he said in a stern tone that proved he meant business. Naturally, another idiotic civilian felt he should have a say in shinobi matters. Never! He shouted at the top of his lungs. Hokage-sama, we cannot allow this thing have what he wants. There's no way he's telling the truth. All the shinobis looked at him with an "are you serious?" expression. Before Sarutobi could retort, Naruto did. You know, it amazes how idiotic you civilians can be, saying I'm a demon when I've never done anything to harm you. Did my mother ever harm civilians or leave shinobi when Seichi was the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi? Did the Shodai Hokage's wife, Mito Uzumaki, ever harm civilians or leave shinobi when Seichi was the Jinchuriki of Kyuubi? No, either of them have. In fact, if I remember correctly, Mito-sama was worshipped. And have I ever tried to harm civilians or leave shinobis using the Kyuubi's power? No, I haven't, so sit down and shut the fuck up. Even after all the beatings you people gave me, I never lashed out. Even after all the times you hunted me down on my birthday and beat me within an inch of my life, I never lashed out. Even after all the times you told your children to stay away from me because you didn't want them contaminated by demon filth, I never lashed out. If I wanted to, I could have torn off the seal that held Benetsuki and let her destroy this place if she wanted the night I found out about her from that bastard Mizuki. I've never harmed you, yet you call me a demon. What about all the times you've attacked, beaten, cut, stabbed me? What about all the times you chopped off pieces of my flesh simply because you were bored? What about all the times you never sold me any food and let me starve for weeks on end before I finally got food? What about all the times you hunted me down along with a mob and cornered me and beat me within an inch of my life simply because you couldn't tell the difference between the container and the contained? So tell me, if I, someone that's never tried to harm you, am a demon, then what would that make you? He said, shocking almost everyone. The genins were shocked, not only because of the fact Naruto held Kyuubi inside of him, but also because of the life he's had to live. Anyone else that went through that would have gone insane. The Jounins were shocked because they never knew the full extent of what the boy had to go through and felt bad for never helping him before. The clan heads were shocked because they prided themselves in knowing what's going on around the village, so to find out that this was going on without them knowing was shocking. Jiraiya was shocked because he was never told of these things ever happening to his godson. The Kages and their bodyguards were shocked since they thought the Leaf were peaceful people that cared for each other as if they were family. It made them wonder, if the Leaf would do such things, what else were they hiding? But what everyone was shocked about was the fact that Konoha's Red Death and the wife of the Shodai Hokage were the previous Jinchurikis of the Kyuubi. As Naruto's earlier words registered to some shinobi, Sarutobi decided to ask the question they were itching to know. Naruto, once the boy turned to him, he continued, "You mentioned someone named Benetsuki earlier. Who is she?" Naruto just had a thoughtful look on his face as if he was debating something. Finally he decided to tell them and sighed, knowing that shit was going to hit the fan. Benetsuki is the Kyuubi's real name. All was silent and Naruto did a mental countdown 3, 2, 1. As he expected, people in the room went into an uproar. The civilians and elders were yelling about killing him before the beast can corrupt him, which pissed him off. How dare those bastards? What right do they have to call my beloved a beast? He mentally growled. Meanwhile, in his inner world, Benetsuki was blushing something fierce when she heard Naruto's thoughts. He just called her his beloved, and she loved it so much. She felt warm inside knowing that her Naruto-kun was so protective over her, and that she was his beloved. When Minato, Kushina, and Hogyoku saw the blush on her face and smirked. Even if Naruto and Benetsuki thought that they only found out recently, they actually knew since the very beginning. It wasn't that hard when you hear moans of "Oh Naruto, go faster, yes. Right there. Right there, and oh I think I'm going to finish soon," coming from either of their rooms when you're passing by. They never mentioned it because they knew they could use it for blackmail later once they are out of the seal. Back in the council room, Naruto was getting more and more pissed off at the ignorant fools yelling about his execution until finally he unleashed about as much spiritual pressure as that little girl, Yuchira, had, which was as much as about a low ANBU level, which made everyone in the room either stop talking, fall to their knees, or imagine their deaths by his blades. As everyone slowly turned their heads to Naruto, he was glaring at the civilian council with his Rinnegan full blast that seemed to glow in an eerie light. "Never call Benetsuki a beast ever again, or I'll use Senbonzakura to shred you each a new asshole to shit out of, since your old ones won't be able to work. Am I clear?" He snarled out with such fury that they swore they saw an image of a man with a shark-like grin on his face, spiky hair with bells at the end of the tips, and a black with gold-trimmed eye patch appeared behind him. It scared them even more and they nodded fearfully for their lives, or at least did their best to, considering that they were still on the floor. The truth was that Hogyoku taught Naruto how to make an image of Kenpachi Zaraki appear behind him whenever he wanted to strike fear into his enemies, considering that Kenpachi Zaraki was one of the most intimidating men that ever graced the world, even by Hogyoku's standards. "Thank you Naruto-koi," Benetsuki told him through their mental link, and Naruto inwardly smiled. "Anything for you, my Kitsunheim," he said, making her smile and blush at one of his nicknames he made for her. It never ceased to amaze the red-haired fox beauty just how much love she could feel coming from Naruto whenever they talked. It made her feel so special. No one has ever treated her with so much love before. Even if Kushina and her had some sort of friendship, Kushina never showed her the emotions that Naruto-kun does. She just felt so happy that she finally has someone to love and that loves her back. As Naruto turned his attention back to the council, he let up his spiritual pressure so that they could breathe easier now. As they all sighed in relief at the disappearance of the suffocating pressure, Naruto turned to the civilians and started speaking. "Know this, since you've all been breaking certain laws when it comes to me, such as assaulting a clan heir, speaking of an S-class law, and vandalizing of property, it is well within my rights to take most of your possessions from you, leaving you barely being able to support you and your families. So as far as everyone in this room is concerned, you are all my bitches, and if I ever say jump, you say how high. Do you understand me?" he asked in a demanding tone. The civilians nodded fearfully, seeing as how they finally realized one simple fact: they're fucked. Naruto then turned and started walking away along with all the other genins, and as the doors closed behind them, Shikamaru sighed, "You troublesome blonde. You give me migraines the size of the Hokage monument, you know that?" "Our favorite lazy genius said Troublesome Blonde just chuckled as they were walking to the spot where they would get back to the Forest of Death. "Oh Shika, didn't you figure it out by now? If I'm not troublesome, I wouldn't be me now, would I?" He finishes, making some people smirk, knowing that he had a point. "Still, did you think it was wise to anger the council like that, Naruto-ni?" said Sakura, who hadn't realized the suffix she used until Naruto chuckled and replied, "Oh Amuro, of course it was wise. It was high time that those arrogant bastards got a kick in the ass." Sakura blushed when she finally realized that she called Naruto big brother. Back in the council room, After the genin left, Sarutobi sighed and leaned back in his chair but noticed a note on the table in front of him. Naturally, he wondered just how it got there, so he reached out and grabbed it. As he unfolded it and read the contents of it, his eyes grew wide. Hey Gigi, after the preliminaries, I'll tell you what happened in the Forest of Death, as well as how I know about my parents. Who knows, maybe I'll even tell you how to beat the cursed paperwork you always have to fight. It didn't take a genius to figure out that Naruto wrote this, considering he was the only one beside Konohamaru that did well that. And the fact that there's a chibi Naruto on the paper holding up a victory sign, while having a fox grin on his face. What if neglected Naruto is aizen chunin exams naruhina? And thanks for watching my video till the end. If you enjoy this content, then do consider subscribing to my channel, and leave a like if you guys need the next part. Comment down, and thanks for watching the video, and see you guys in the next video.